She gave it. That's what she gave. She got it. She gave that. She gave that motherfucker up. I bet she did. $7 million, $900 million in however many fucking millions of dollars she did in 7 years. Ain't come off no, man, I'm telling you, man, I can tell you this and invest in this and do this. No, she was She was. YouTube, what's going on, man? We got the biggest scams in human history. Let's get into the video.
The biggest scams in human history. The Charles Ponzi scheme. The word Ponzi probably sounded familiar to you and instantly made you think of fraud or scams or schemes. And you're exactly right. Ponzi schemes are an extremely well-known and unfortunately well-used type of scam. But what I'm discussing is the original Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, a man who ran one of the largest financial scams of his time and was so influential with his scams that they literally named the method of fraud after him. Charles Ponzi didn't necessarily invent the Ponzi scheme technique, but he did have one of the most impactful uses of it originally, making him the grandfather of financial fraud, scams, and the Ponzi scheme. Charles was born on March 3rd, 1882, and he had likely one of the longest names I've ever seen. His full name was Carlo Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo Tebaldo Ponzi. That's right.
Damn, that's a long ass name, boy. Carlito Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo. Man, I can't say that shit, but hey, man. That's a long ass name, bro. Imagine somebody asks what your real name is, your whole name. You gotta say that shit. You gotta say that shit with the quickness. That's a long ass name. And to be sitting there robbing folks so much that these niggas named the scheme after you, you not a great person, my nigga. That shit crazy, boy.
Right, that's 6 names. Like, is it 1 first name, 4 middle names, and 1 last name? 2 first names, 2 middle names, 2 last names? 6 first names? I don't know. It may not come as a surprise that Mr. Charles, 6-name Ponzi, was born in northern Italy, in case the names didn't already give that away. According to interviews and his own biography, Ponzi found a love for earning and spending money at a young age. And he even said, quote, spending money seemed the most attractive thing on earth. Now, that's easy to say when you're spending time in universities with your rich friends and they're covering your tab. But once you need to start paying your own bills, that's when things get tough. And that's exactly what happened to Charles Ponzi, as he ended up leaving university with no money in his pocket and no diploma to show for his time at the school. And because of this, Ponzi decided that his best course of action was to follow in the footsteps of some of his family members and go to America to seek new opportunities. Now, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that was relatively common, and a lot of Italians were emigrating to the United States from Italy, although not many of them ended up doing what Ponzi did.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free
my nigga
e-commerce store.
You can dare all day, my nigga. I don't accept the dare, my nigga. I don't.
After arriving in America,
and also this nigga came over to America. He said, "I know everybody coming for the American dream, but I'm coming to scheme these niggas, get all their money, get all their cash, get all their profit. So bad, these niggas gonna have to name this shit after me."
Ponzi worked odd jobs, trying to get some sort of cash flow in this new life he had begun. Although he couldn't hold the job down for long because he was often caught stealing. Once he likely burned too many bridges in the States, he then decided to move to Canada. Once in Canada, he found his first real career as a bank teller at a bank that was specifically made for Italian immigrants coming to Canada. He was obviously a shoo-in, and because of this, combined with his people skills, he was able to quickly climb the ladder of the company. And this really marks the turning point, where his petty theft turns into widespread financial fraud. Now, it wasn't with this bank where he committed the fraud that we're going to end up discussing, although it's definitely where the seed was planted, because the bank that he was working for actually ended up going under, because the founder of this bank, Luigi Zarassi, was actually running a Ponzi scheme out of this bank, offering high interest rates to customers and paying out those interest payments from new deposits. And once this bank collapsed, Ponzi's career also collapsed, leaving him once again with no money and no direction. And during this time, he actually got caught with a fake check and went to prison for 3 years, which he served, and then after his time was up, he went back to the United States. And once back in the States, he obviously started a new life, right? He was a clean man. He went to jail. He learned his lesson. No. His first job, once back in the States, was actually smuggling Italian immigrants into the United States.
This nigga gets out of jail. I never understood this. This be with people. This for people like if you a nigga that done been to prison, bro. This for you, or a person that's been to prison. Why when certain people get out of jail, they just like, man, fuck it, I'm going back to do the same shit. I just got a smarter idea about doing it. Like, it makes no sense. That's the dumbest thing ever, bro. You went and wasted so much time in your life stuck in a box where you got to be told when to eat, when to shit, when to do anything that you do. And you get out and you like, shit, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to just do it better and I get caught. But then get caught. Like, it don't make sense. It's so dumb. It's like your time that you spend behind jail, like, you ain't learn shit. You just like, fuck it, I'm gonna get out and do it even. You learn how to do it better. Quote unquote. Shit crazy.
Which he got caught for and served an additional 2 years. And after this second stint in jail and 2 more failed businesses, Ponzi decided that it was time to get rich, for real. And this is where his big scheme and all of his criminal career comes together. And he decides to run his first Ponzi scheme. Now, we're going to be talking about Ponzi schemes a lot, so if you're not familiar with what a Ponzi scheme is, in short, it's the old adage of robbing Peter to pay Paul. What you essentially do is take money from Group A. Let's say Group A gives you money because you tell them you're going to double their money. And then you get Group B and C to give you money under the same deal that you're going to help them double their money. You take Group B and C's money and give it to Group A. You officially now doubled their money. But now Group B and C want their money doubled, right? So you need Group D and E, new investors, to pay Group C and B. And essentially, it's a never-ending cycle where you need new people to pay off old debts, while at the same time keeping the entire lie concealed that you actually don't have the money that you say you have, and that there is no investment or accumulation of wealth going on. You're simply perpetually in debt and allowing new investors to pay the debt to old investors, and nobody's really making money. And as soon as you stop getting new investors, everything falls apart. That's the long and short of a Ponzi scheme. But what makes a Ponzi scheme so insane is the scale that some people take it, which is what we're going to discuss. So after jail and failed business after failed business after failed job, how exactly did Charles Ponzi plan to get rich? What was the original Ponzi scheme? It actually involved postage coupons. Obviously, in the early 1900s, like literally 1906, there was no iMessage, there was no Instagram, there's no text, there's nothing. And letters were huge. And during this time, there was something known as an international reply coupon. And what it was basically a courtesy. Let's say that you're in the United States and you're writing a letter to your friend in the United Kingdom. You might pay 25 cents to send your letter to your friend. But as a courtesy, you might not want to make them spend their own money to reply to you because they didn't ask for you to reach out to them, right? So this international reply coupon is something that you would buy, put in the letter that you're sending to your friend, so that when your friend opened the letter, they had a coupon to send you a letter back free of charge to them, because you already paid for it. Makes sense and seems simple enough. But to Ponzi, this wasn't simply a courtesy, this was an arbitrage opportunity. You see, as a scammer, Ponzi was
This nigga scammed so hard, he like, bro, I'm gonna find a way to send this shit through the mail. Like, I feel like if he seen that shit today, he'd be proud. He'd be overly proud. You know how many ways people be scamming now? They done brought it to online and everything else. Like, he like, man, a Nigerian prince trying to give everybody money like it's the greatest scheme ever, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? And this shit just incorporate more and more and more and then add to itself and add to itself. It's like, you know, it's crazy. Because everybody, they all doing this crazy shit. Now, people is getting caught going to jail doing this shit, true enough. But he'll be proud as how many people that made some M's off this shit. Because niggas done did that. Like, it's insane.
Always looking for people to pick up his business ideas. And because of that, he was sending letters constantly to people that he was pitching business ideas to. And one day, he got a letter back from a company in Spain. And this company included an international reply coupon in the letter. And one thing that Ponzi noticed was that the price on this international reply coupon from Spain was different than the price of the ones he could buy in the States. Now, this is interesting.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens.
Sorry about that,
and
y'all.
better controls.
I might go on actually.
Now, this is interesting.
I might pay for the ad.
Because on paper, all of the coupons are supposed to have the same cash price. But because of World War I, inflation affected different areas differently, meaning that although the prices may have remained the same, the values of the currencies have not. Which meant that there was an opportunity for Ponzi to make some money. For simple math, let's say that you in the United States could buy one of these reply coupons for 5 cents USD, and your friend in the United Kingdom could buy a stamp for 5 pence. Assuming at one point these currencies had the exact same value, both you and your friend are paying the same amount for these coupons. However, let's say inflation affected the UK more than it did the US during World War I, and now the Great British Pound is worth 10% less compared to the US dollar. There's an opportunity, because while the prices of each of these items is still the same, the relative value of the money money that your friend in the UK is buying them for is less. Meaning that if you converted 500 US dollars for 550 Great British pounds, you could get 11,000 international reply coupons. And if you sold those 11,000 international reply coupons in the United States, you would get 550 US dollars. So through this clever strategy, you were able to turn 500 US dollars into 550 US dollars. And that's the basis of this scam. And while that process is known as arbitrage and isn't a scam, that's just an opportunity that exists between markets, what Ponzi ended up doing definitely was a scam. Ponzi started claiming that he could give people big returns because of this arbitrage opportunity. And he told potential investors that he had people all across Europe that were buying up these coupons in bulk, shipping them to the States where he was selling them for a profit. And that if you as an investor were looking to make some money, simply give him your money, he will buy these coupons and give you a return. And the return that he was claiming was massive. He claimed a 50% return in 45 days or an 100% return in net.
Niggas hear that shit, they like, oh, this is magic. How you doing this? And that's what the saying go, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. You know what I'm saying? That's usually how it go. That's usually what it is. Anything that sounds too good to be true probably is not true, bro. It's always schemes, it's always loopholes, it's always shit that people be doing. You know what I'm saying?
90 days. And if you're familiar with investing at all, those are insane returns. Now here's the thing. Experienced investors at the time weren't falling for Ponzi's scheme. They knew his pitch seemed too good to be true. And when they pushed him about how this money was being made, Ponzi refused to give information under the guise that it would help with the competition. This obviously wasn't satisfactory to high-level investors, and for that reason they were interested. However, Ponzi was definitely able to fool the common folk. People who had aspirations of getting rich quick and didn't really know any better. And that ended up becoming the basis of the company that he had just started, the Securities Exchange Company, a company that would go on to become one of the largest scams of all time. Because of the massive returns that Ponzi was claiming and initially paying out, the word spread like wildfire. And it wasn't long until he had thousands and thousands of customers investing millions of dollars directly with him. And it's claimed that at the height of his career, he was pulling in over $250,000 per day, which
250 bands a day way back then. This nigga is a boss. He the biggest boss. He the biggest boss in the city. 250 bands a day back then, nigga. 250 bands a day right now is amazing, nigga. So back then, that's more than amazing. You living like a prince, a king. You made so much, you just get away. I make so much shit. I'm already out the country. You can't do shit to me. 250 bands a day? Do you know what I do with that? I don't know what I do with that. I don't even know, bruh.
which is over $3 million a day in today's money.
Insane.
But in case this wasn't already obvious, nobody was buying these international reply coupons at all. Although that was technically a possible arbitrage opportunity, the operational logistics of operating that sort of scheme would have made no sense for investors. As after you paid people to buy these coupons, ship them overseas, and sell them domestically, that small 10% margin would have been eaten up. And if inflation ended up changing in any of these markets that they were operating in, the entire thing could have fallen apart anyways. That being said, Ponzi was telling investors that their money was going to fund this arbitrage opportunity, when in reality, it was going into his bank account, funding his lavish lifestyle, and paying out old investors. But all of the fun and games did not last long, because in the summer of 1920, everything came crashing down for Charles Ponzi. Essentially, what happened was Charles was not only getting popularity through word of mouth, but he was now getting media coverage. And one of the biggest newspapers in Boston, which he was living in at the time, posted a story about him and his rags to riches story, and how he was able to provide such unheard of returns to his investors. It was great publicity and earned him additional millions. However, this newfound attention gathered newfound scrutiny, and it wasn't long until people started to investigate him. And shortly after this great PR came hit pieces, which weren't even hit pieces. They were just basically saying, hey, this guy has no money. Go get your money. And at that point, investors were like, yeah, I would like to get my money. And once it was proven that Charles Ponzi was not only insolvent, but also a criminal with a record in Canada and the States, investors were furious, and almost like a bank run, everybody wanted their money at once, which is obviously impossible with a Ponzi scheme, and the house of cards officially collapsed. It was
looking for an easier way to get that LLC next to your business name.
I don't know why y'all want to give me so many
Just go to their site
like this, bro, but I don't give a fuck about
it. Was later confirmed that Ponzi never...
But anyway, what I was finna say, man, this nigga right here, boy, the Ponzi, man, by the time they would have found out, I would have already been on a whole nother universe, nigga. $3 million a day? I'm in a country you can't come get me from. I'm gone already. Like, it ain't nothing you gonna be able to do, bro. I'm balling. I would have got away. Because I know the Fed's coming. All that money, the Fed's on the way. They wouldn't have got me, though. Out of the world. You ain't gonna catch me, boy. I made too much.
Sold any international reply coupons within the United States, and at the time of his arrest was $7 million in debt. Keep in mind, this is 1920 money. Charles Ponzi ended up being convicted of mail fraud, and the collapse of his Ponzi scheme actually resulted in the subsequent collapse of 6 other banks. And of course, the financial hardship and ruin of the tens of thousands of investors that trusted Charles Ponzi with their money. Some fortunate investors did receive 30 cents on the dollar back, and some received nothing back at all. In total, investors at the time lost around $20 million, which calculated for today's money is over $300 million.
Damn it!
Keep in mind, this is
Damn it!
only over the course of literally a year. The scheme only started to gain traction in 1919, and the entire house of cards collapsed in 2020. And this was also 100 years ago, when the population was much smaller and financial markets were not nearly as developed as they were today. Regardless, Charles Ponzi is a pioneer of fraud and scams, which is definitely nothing to be proud of. And while this definitely isn't the biggest financial scam to ever happen, or even the most famous example of a Ponzi scheme happening, this was the first official Ponzi scheme, and Charles Ponzi is a grandfather of fraud. And for that reason, I knew his story deserved the first spot on this list.
Of course.
I could make an entire video about the craziest Ponzi schemes ever, but I wanted to keep this video about scams diverse. And for that reason, I decided why not pick the original. Let's move on. The Elizabeth Holmes scandal. What happens when you mix amazing PR with one of the most innovative and impactful medical devices to ever be invented? Well, you would get the youngest female self-made billionaire. And her name is Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes went to Stanford University, where she dropped out at the age of 19. And she dropped out because she had bigger plans. She had plans of revolutionizing the entire medical industry. And in 2003, she founded the company in which she was going to do that with. The original name of the company was Real Time Cures, but it was shortly after renamed to Theranos, a company that is now known as one of the largest scams in venture capital and human history. In 2004, only a year after its founding, Holmes was able to raise a total of $6 million in funds.
She done won, boy. She was 19 years old, they said. Dropped out and somehow made a business and then raised 6 M's. Who the fuck is her family? Cause ain't no way. I get the color of her skin. I get the skin. I get that she got in the hair. I get she got a good opportunity with her situation because of who she was born to be. But who got all that money, bro? Off the rip, you can drop out of medical school, create a whole business, and make 6 M's in funding off rip. Who is your people? Who are your connections? Who meet you eating?
For her healthcare project. And in 6 short years, by the end of 2010, her company Theranos had over $92 million in venture capital investments, which basically just means rich business people invested in her company to help it grow so they could make a return on their investment. The reason why Elizabeth was able to gather almost $100 million in investor funds in only 7 years after founding the company isn't because she was the smoothest talker of all time, or because she had the craziest arbitrage
That's what she gave. She got it. She gave that. She gave that motherfucker up. I bet she did. $7 million, $900 million in 7. Man, however many fucking millions of dollars she did in 7 years, ain't come off no. Man, I'm telling you, man, I can tell you this and invest in this and do this. No, she was She was eating that motherfucker up for dinner, lunch, breakfast, everything. You can't tell me. Look at her. Come on, man.
She had a very compelling idea in a market that was extremely profitable. As I mentioned, Theranos is a healthcare company, and the specific goal of Theranos was to develop a machine that could provide the most accurate and comprehensive analysis of your current health through only a minuscule few drops of blood. And the reason she claimed to have had this idea is because she was very scared of needles and realized that blood testing required a lot of blood and a lot of needles. Although, if you could develop a technology that only required a finger prick to gather important health information, more people would be willing to get this sort of testing. Testing could be done more easily and accessibly, and ultimately lives could be improved and even saved. Just think Just think about it. If you could walk into a Walgreens, prick your finger, put a drop of blood onto a machine and know basically everything about your body, diseases you might be at risk for, diseases you might have.
You got that shit, you got that shit, you got that shit, you might have sugar, you got that shit, you got that shit, you got that shit.
And deficiencies you may have, why wouldn't you do that? And this, obviously simplified, is the story that Elizabeth Holmes was selling, specifically in the form of the Edison, the machine that Theranos was developing to do all of this magic work, where it could take a few drops of blood and analyze it and even diagnose the patient. Now, obviously, this is a video about scams, not medical breakthroughs, so what gives? Holmes had really big ideas, but unfortunately, she lacked big execution and integrity. See, in Silicon Valley, the idea of this up-and-coming medical company with the amazing results was gaining popularity, and obviously that showed with the investments being made. But Holmes' scheme was only further given credibility by the people she was surrounding herself by, specifically well-known, successful, and credible investors, and also board members, as well as former and current members of the United States government. And this was intentional on her part. She wanted to make herself and her company seem legit as possible, which is interesting because for a while, Theranos was in quote-unquote stealth mode, which essentially meant that it was not publicly facing at all. There was no website, no social media, simply a behind-the-scenes product that investors were getting in early before it went to market. Theranos at its peak was valued at over $9 billion, and even had a partnership with Walgreens, one of the largest pharmacy chains in the entire United States. And this is actually where part of the scam gets dark, because this partnership involved Walgreens using Theranos' Edison device to diagnose patients. But here's the deal, and this is kind of the encompassing issue with this entire situation. Theranos never had a working product. This Edison machine never worked as described. They claimed with a drop of blood, you could have over 200 tests performed, but that was simply never the case. And not only could it not do that, what it did do was typically inaccurate. And obviously, when you're having inaccuracies medically at scale, you are going to have dire consequences. People getting misdiagnosed. And as a consequence, people could die. Now, for the medical victims, there is a bit of a silver lining, because Theranos knew that their machine was inaccurate and didn't work fully, if at all. And for that reason, they were sneakily doing third-party lab testing, essentially outsourcing.
This nigga said, I know our machines don't work. We done made enough money. I'm gonna open this company up where we gonna search their blood actually and tell them what's really going on, but make it like the machine did it, even though we know the machine ain't do shit. It's just a piece of plastic and glass and metal and other things that come with making it. And cyborgs and not cyborg. What the fuck am I talking about? Cyborg? Don't even make sense. But yeah, we're going to do all this shit and we're going to get a backside team in order to investigate everything that's going on. This is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to go. You know what I'm saying? And that's what she did.
Their blood work to other companies that do legitimate blood work, which at least doesn't put patients at risk, but is fraud when you are telling investors that you are using a proprietary machine and you are still lying to medical patients. If you are telling them that, oh, yeah, you just need a prick of blood, and then you show up at the office and they're like, oh,
so
actually, we need to draw blood for you, but not everybody. Only we need to draw blood from you, but everybody else gets a finger prick. Just in this situation, you need to get.
So you poke my shit for nothing. That's what you saying. You poke my hands for nothing. You stabbed me in my fucking fingers for nothing. Come on, man.
Blood drawn. It is still deception in a medical setting, which is never okay. And for all the investors that thought that they were getting in early to this revolutionary medical device, they were actually funding nothing of the sort. And that's where things begin to fall. Because in 2015, a whistleblower from within the Theranos company brought his concerns to a Wall Street Journal journalist. And together, they exposed the lies about the technology and how Theranos was using traditional lab equipment and lying about basically any real innovation. And this is when the floodgates opened. Because the following year, in 2016, Walgreens terminated their partnership with Theranos and closed all of their in-store testing centers. And because of this, major investors began to withdraw from the company and even demanded their money back. And
ChatGPT, can I make money online with $0?
Man, this ain't what we doing right now, man. Damn, man.
And only a few years later, in 2018, criminal charges were placed after a lengthy court proceeding where Elizabeth Holmes claimed her innocence.
I guarantee she got off. If she didn't get off, she has to pay a huge fine, but then she's going to get out of jail free and still have a lot of that money that she made. They ain't hurting shit.
confidently and proudly, she was eventually convicted of 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, which is honestly a bit light in my opinion. Regardless, she was sentenced to over 11 years in prison, where she currently resides to this day. So yeah,
well,
this is really a heartbreaking story.
She got 11, Mom. I was wrong. Damn, I was not thinking they were gonna give her that much time. You see how she looked? Now I didn't think they were gonna give her that. I thought they probably give her 11. She served about 1.5, 2 years of that sentence, because you know. But if you're federal, you got to serve 85%. She'll get out and still be balling though. She ain't hurting too bad, nigga. She made billions. It don't matter. Like, she can pay some of that shit back, but you ain't gonna find all that money. You know what I'm saying? It's alright.
For many reasons. Elizabeth Holmes seemed like such a promising, bright, young entrepreneur, and on the surface seemed to pave a path for female entrepreneurs and the entire medical industry. However, in reality, she was just a female Steve Jobs wannabe with the craziest eyes you've ever seen and a complete disregard for investor funds, any sort of transparency, or for accurate results for the patients that they were working with. Investors were credited back whatever funds were currently available, and hundreds of people lost their job. As at their height, Theranos had over 800 employees. This story is a really great example of why you should never believe everything you hear. And just because somebody says a lot of fancy words and claims...
If y'all enjoyed this video, bro, I'm gonna end it here. If y'all want to catch the rest of the video, come to his channel, bro. He make pretty good content, I'm not gonna lie. It is Trust Me, Bro. Come to the channel, watch the channel, give him some support on that side. And yeah, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video, man. We out this thing. Bye.